We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Welcome to Inside Scoop Virginia. I'm Bettina Lawton and I'm your host. And I'm very excited to have with me Karen Keys-Gamarra. She is the Democratic endorsed nominee for the countywide seat on the Fairfax School Board. She ran for the school board seat from the Sully District in 2015 and narrowly lost by less than 200 votes. She's a graduate of Tulane University and the Washington University School of Law in St. Louis. She has a lifelong commitment to helping children. As an attorney, she handles family matters and works extensively with children in crises. She is a court-appointed guardian ad litem, and she deals with education-related issues, including discipline and special education. She has also been a court-appointed special advocate for children, particularly in domestic violence situations. She is currently a member of the Fairfax County Planning Commission, and she serves on its school committee. She is on the advisory board of an organization that deals with domestic violence, and she was appointed a member of the school board task force, budget task force, which is essential given the school's perpetually underfunded status. So welcome, Karen. I am so glad to be able to talk with you. I know you've got a special election.
Yes.
August 29th.
Yes.
Regular polling places.
Yes.
6 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Precisely.
And I always like to say that's the last day people can vote, because there is early voting, and if you're going to be on vacation, it is no excuse.
Right.
Go early.
You can go to Fairfax County Government Center up until August 26th.
Right. So do that, because this, I'm going to say this, you can't say this because you're the candidate, but I can say this. This is a special election, and special elections in Virginia are governed by a time frame that's set out in the statute. And based on when the individual whose seat you're running for resigned, we have to have a special election and spend around $250,000 that the county really doesn't have. Whereas if the person had waited just a little bit, we could have done this in November, on November 7th instead, and saved that money. And instead, and I find this particularly offensive because I think the people who are on the school board need to show that they are fiscally responsible. And it is fiscally irresponsible to cause the county to spend $250,000 just because you're hoping for a low turnout that will allow a Republican endorsed person to win. So that's my speech, that's my soapbox, and now I'll get off of it. But it just annoys me no end that that we're spending that kind of money when it was so unnecessary. But let's talk education. Okay. Quality of education in Fairfax County Public Schools. As I've said in the intro, the school system is always telling us, for some reason it always seems to be $100 million that you're short year over year over year. Just doesn't seem to matter what amount of money you actually get. Yes. What improvements can be done in this kind of an environment? There isn't more money, so what happens?
Well, I think you said it earlier in your intro, fiscal responsibility is very important. As you stated, I've been on the budget committee, and what I realized from that is that our school system is doing a very good job. We're tackling a lot of issues, but I also think that we need to seriously look at our budget in the same way that the county has, and have a line item budget review so that you can actually understand, first of all, where the money is going, what objectives have been set, and whether we're actually achieving those objectives or not. Because I think that we put things in place, but we also need to monitor where that money is going and whether it's being effective.
And that is something that I've always sort of wondered about, because what I hear is that it's very hard to do sort of a line of business analysis like the county did, because there's a little money over here for the program and a little money over here, and it would require the school system staff to actually pull all of that together, and there apparently is some resistance to doing that. Maybe because they don't want to have to admit how much they're spending.
I can't answer that question, but I can say that as a planning commissioner, I routinely ask questions We receive staff reports all the time, and it provides the county's explanation. Oftentimes I feel that it is my duty as a representative of the community to question what those numbers mean. And if the information that I need isn't included in that application or it hasn't been provided, then I ask for it, and I expect to get it.
So what are some of your priorities? You talk about in some of your literature and on your Facebook page, talking about retaining exceptional teachers.
Absolutely.
Is that all the teachers exceptional, or is there some sort of a merit analysis that needs to be done?
Well, I wasn't referring to a merit analysis. We have good teachers. We have exceptional teachers. But we also have some problems retaining our teachers. In some schools, we are only retaining about 40% of our schools, not all of our teachers. That's a crisis. And when we have teachers talking about their salaries, and we have concerns about teacher morale, and we have problems retaining our teachers, then we really have to focus on that issue. And we have to look at things like, why are they having a moral? Why is the morale lower than it should be? We have to improve communication with our staff. We have to recognize that our teachers and staff really are the critical resource that helps us to get the job done. And so I think that I would like to take steps to make sure that our staff understands that they are a priority. We certainly need to look at diversifying our funding and all of that, and we need to be fiscally responsible, but we also need to recognize that this is a priority and that this is a crisis.
So it's easy, I guess, for teachers, because as I read it, you can make more money in Loudoun County at this point in Arlington, so it's relatively easy. Are class sizes another issue? I hear people talk about that.
Absolutely. I mean, as an attorney and a guardian ad litem, I go all over the county. I get an opportunity to talk to teachers and staff members, parents, and you hear complaints about large class sizes. And the problem is that teachers are not in a position to differentiate learning, and it becomes a frustrating situation for the teachers as well as the students. And so that's the reason why we have to also focus on class sizes, making sure that we're actually equipping our teachers to be able to do their job, because that's really that's the reason we're a public school.
Well, you talked about communication, and one of the things that many years ago, when I was the president of the PTSA at James Madison High School, a number of the teachers would say that they were afraid to talk about issues because they felt that the principal sort of controlled everything. I mean, how do you get that good level of communication going where people feel safe in saying what they're going to say?
Well, that's another thing. I think I've talked about ways of making sure that teachers can communicate. I think we have to have some clear lines of communication. I think that we need to develop ways that teachers can submit their concerns anonymously. We currently have surveys, but it's not targeted enough to be able to know where the problems really are oftentimes. And so things can kind of get lost. And I know in talking to staff members, they have said to me, well, we have this problem or that problem, but I'm afraid to say so because I fear retaliation. And that really should not be the case. And I think that one of my objectives would be to make sure that our staff members understand that I'm willing to speak to them, that I want them to have a way where they can communicate in confidence and not fear retaliation. Because let's face it, they're on the front line. They know what our kids are going through. They know what the problems are. We can't afford to lose their viewpoint.
Well, I'm surprised that we are losing so many teachers. Let me ask you a little bit about the George Mason study that came out. Now, that was based on 2012 data.
Yes.
But it was pretty blunt in saying that particularly African American applicants, so they are not being hired, they apparently have the same or better qualifications, but they're not being hired, and then they seem to be appointed to schools that have high minority populations, which in one sense is good. You've got a not a mentor, but an example to follow that the kids can see. But on the other hand, it's sort of like workforce segregation, which is a bad thing. So what needs to be done to handle that? And recognizing, I saw the school system said, oh, that's old data, we're doing much better. But what's your position on this stuff?
Well, it's not good. The situation is not good. And we need to recognize that while we have language in our strategic plan that says that having a diverse workforce is part of what we're trying to achieve, we also need to recognize that what we've been doing isn't working.
Right.
And we need to be honest with ourselves. We need to understand that perhaps there could be some systemic problems with the way that we hire that is not self-correcting. Previously, there had been an office to look at these types of issues, and that office no longer exists. There have been things that have been done in the past that we're doing again, cultural competence and things of that sort, but they tend to be spot things that happen and then we drop it. We have to take a concerted effort, and we have to first of all recognize that everybody, I don't care where we look like, where we come from, we have some type of implicit bias. We have to look at how we're hiring. Each school tends to be somewhat autonomous. I think that we need to develop best hiring practices, and then we need to have in-house oversight with respect to making sure that those practices are being followed.
How does that work? I mean, I'm assuming that there is some big HR function within the school system. Isn't that already their job? Shouldn't it just be do your job, as we say?
Maybe, but it hasn't happened.
Right.
And I think we have to deal with the reality of where we are. I have spoken with a number of these teachers, and they verify what the George Mason study says. And so I think that we can't pretend that this isn't an issue. I think that we have to listen to our teachers. I think that we have to work on the attitude with respect to how minority teachers and staff members contribute to the overall health and wealth of our school system. Because I think that our students, our non-African American students, benefit from what people of color bring to the schools. And so we can't just see them benefiting, oh, well, this is a black child, so they need a black teacher. Right. All students benefit from diverse viewpoints. And so I think we have some work to do. I think we have the wherewithal to do it and the respect. I don't think any of this is intentional, but I do think that we have to take some concerted efforts to correct it.
Well, I want to thank you for coming in. How can people find you to help you? What's your website, Facebook?
Karen, the number 4, fairfaxkids.com.
All right. Well, good luck. August 29th, 6 a.m. to 7 p.m., your regular voting place. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you, Bettina.